We start with a prison warden, a colonel named Colonel Winter, who is overseeing his military prison as usual. Not long after, one of his men brings surprising news. A lieutenant general, now a convicted prisoner, is being transferred to their facility. For Winter as a warden, this is a point of pride. He will get to personally receive one of the most respected figures in the United States military. Word of the general's arrival quickly spreads among the inmates. Almost everyone is talking about it, including a former soldier named Yates, who now runs an underground gambling operation inside the prison. Before long, the man they have all been waiting for finally arrives. He is Lieutenant General Irwin. Irwin has been sentenced to 10 years in prison for disobeying a direct order from the president, after sending American troops into Burundi on a mission that resulted in the deaths of 8 soldiers. Colonel Winter deeply admires Irwin and even plans to ask him to sign one of his prized war books. While Irwin briefly chats with one of the guards, Winter steps away to fetch the book. However, Irwin openly criticizes Winter's collection of priceless military artifacts. He says these are things a real war veteran would never want to own because they only serve as painful reminders of the suffering experienced during war. Irwin does not realize that Winter overhears this comment. Winter is offended, especially since he has never actually seen real combat himself. Stung by the criticism, he quietly drops his plan to ask for Irwin's autograph. As Irwin is about to leave Winter's office, he runs into an inmate named Aguilar, who stands at attention and salutes the general out of pure respect. Winter immediately shuts this down and forbids Aguilar from saluting Irwin ever again, reminding him that Irwin is no longer a general, only a prisoner now. As Irwin walks out, a quiet tension settles over the prison. This is the last castle. The next day, while all the inmates are out in the yard for their recreation time, a fight breaks out and quickly turns into a full-scale disturbance. From the edge of the yard, Irwin watches as the warning alarm blares and the guards rush in to regain control, firing rubber bullets at the prisoners who started the riot. Meanwhile, Colonel Winter simply observes everything from the safety of his office. Later at lunch, several inmates approach General Irwin to complain about the abuse they suffer at the hands of Winter and his guards, including the deaths of some prisoners from those so-called non-lethal rubber bullets. They hope Irwin will use his connections in the government to report what is really happening inside the prison and push for action against Winter and his men. But Irwin refuses to get involved. He tells them he only wants to serve his sentence in this prison without taking sides or getting entangled with anyone. Aguilar visits Irwin again, unable to hide the respect he has for one of the most admired war veterans in the country. The two share a calm conversation about military traditions and the meaning of a salute. What they do not realize is that Colonel Winter is watching from a distance. The simple act of Aguilar showing respect makes Winter uneasy. He is afraid the rest of the inmates will start looking up to Irwin more than they look up to him, the man who is supposed to be in charge. To shut this down, Winter punishes Aguilar by ordering him to stand in the yard for a full 24 hours while holding a salute toward the warden's office. Even when heavy rain starts pouring and Aguilar is shivering from the cold, Winter refuses to call off the punishment. Feeling sympathy for Aguilar, Irwin approaches him and tells him to take shelter from the storm. That small act of kindness leads to Irwin being reprimanded and beaten by the guards under Winter's orders.
Okay, that's enough.
When Irwin confronts Winter about the basic rights of the inmates, Winter fires back by listing the prison rules and accusing Irwin of interfering with the guards. Any admiration he once had for Irwin has completely vanished. Out of spite, he orders Irwin to haul massive stones as punishment. The prisoners quickly turn the punishment into a betting event, with Yates taking the lead. Some expect Irwin to fail, but many others cheer him on. Despite not being as strong as he once was, Irwin keeps working without a single complaint. He removes his shirt in the heat, revealing the scars he earned on the battlefield, including one from the moment he fought desperately to protect his own men. Moments like that are what made him so respected in the military. With sheer determination, Irwin completes the task. The yard erupts in applause. Even after Winter extends his punishment by another full day and throws him into solitary confinement, Irwin continues to carry himself with dignity. When he finally returns to his cell block, every inmate pays their respects. To them, the way he endures hardship reflects the spirit of a true soldier. Later, Yates visits Irwin with a carton of cigarettes as a reward. Irwin, who does not smoke, hands them to Aguilar and tells him to distribute them to the others. During this moment, it becomes clear that Irwin knew Yates's father, who once served under him. Irwin shares stories about the man, recalling how he inspired courage in his unit even when they were surrounded with almost no hope of survival. He explains that his soldiers were like family to him, men he would protect at any cost. Hearing about his father in this way leaves Yates, a former officer and helicopter pilot himself, deeply moved. The next day, Irwin joins the inmates, who have been ordered by Colonel Winter to build a wall. The project is meant to keep them busy, nothing more. Irwin sees an opportunity and asks Aguilar to teach the others how to build a proper stone and mortar wall. Aguilar explains that his father was a skilled mason, so Irwin trusts him to guide the group. Under Irwin's direction, the inmates begin working together with real purpose. His leadership naturally pulls people in. Instead of becoming someone the prisoners resent, like Winter expected, Irwin earns their respect. They even start calling him their chief. That growing respect does not sit well with Colonel Winter. Feeling threatened, he orders the guards to tear down the wall the inmates have just built. The prisoners refuse to accept it. When Aguilar steps in front of the bulldozer to protect the wall, Winter reacts immediately. He orders a sniper to fire rubber rounds straight at Aguilar's head. These rounds are not supposed to be lethal, but the shot kills him instantly. With the wall destroyed and Aguilar gone, Irwin and the inmates give him a final salute, using the same formation reserved for soldiers who fall in battle. Sometime later, Winter visits Irwin's cell. Worried about his own position, he tries to offer Irwin a small deal, asking him to stay quiet about Aguilar's death. Irwin refuses without hesitation. He and the inmates want Winter removed from his post for abusing his power and causing unnecessary harm. Knowing the guards will report everything back to Winter, the inmates begin moving and communicating like soldiers around Irwin, using coded words and subtle signals. During an inspection visit to the prison, Brigadier General Wheeler arrives. He is Colonel Winter's superior, and Winter immediately tries to convince him to act on an old promise. Winter claims that Irwin is delusional, accusing him of treating the prison like a battlefield and trying to take over his position as warden. Wheeler listens, but he respects Irwin far more than Winter realizes. He chooses to speak with Irwin directly and hears the concerns shared by him and the inmates about Winter's abusive leadership. Wheeler tells Irwin that if he wants action taken, he must first gather solid evidence against Winter. With that, Irwin and the prisoners closest to him begin planning to remove Colonel Winter from power. They quietly organize a protest in the yard. Yates appears ready to join them, but at the last moment, he distances himself. Winter notices this and quickly pulls Yates aside. He offers him a reduced sentence if he is willing to spy on Irwin and report everything back. Once the guards are distracted, Irwin gathers all the inmates and reveals the full plan. They intend to take control of the prison long enough to raise the American flag upside down, a universal signal of distress. If they succeed, it will prove that Winter has completely lost control and must be removed. After sharing the plan, Irwin realizes that Yates has been spying on him. He pulls Yates aside for a private talk. Irwin tells him that he sees the heart of a real fighter within him and that Winter only sees his flaws and uses him as a tool. Irwin believes Yates has the courage to protect those who are being mistreated. But despite the heartfelt words, Yates chooses Winter's offer and immediately reports the plan. Winter reacts by hiding the flag inside his office. Not long after, a prisoner bursts into the office yelling at Yates, calling him a traitor. Winter and his aides rush out to deal with the disturbance. In that brief moment, Yates slips back into the office, steals the flag, and hides it. The next morning, Yates reports to Winter that Irwin has supposedly retrieved the flag. Winter throws him into solitary confinement, believing Yates has switched sides. He then orders nearly all of his guards to search every cell and round up the inmates in the yard. But this is exactly what Irwin planned. With most of the guards locked inside the cell blocks, the inmates outside can move freely. Irwin intentionally creates chaos throughout the prison. His goal is clear. He wants General Wheeler to see firsthand that Colonel Winter can no longer control his own facility and must be removed. As the chaos erupts across the prison, Yates manages to break out of solitary confinement. The timing could not be more perfect. The inmates are fighting back, debris is flying in every direction, and the guards are firing rubber rounds to try to regain control. In the middle of the chaos, one inmate reaches the communications room and manages to call General Wheeler, reporting the full-scale breakdown of order and Winter's failure to control the prison. Winter reacts fast. He deploys the last of his forces to push the inmates back. But under Irwin's command, the prisoners work together with surprising discipline. They use makeshift weapons, coordinate their movements, and even blow up Winter's office. They manage to stop an armored vehicle from firing its water cannon, and they fight using the same tactics Irwin once used on real battlefields. When Winter learns that Wheeler will arrive in only 20 minutes, panic sets in. He orders a helicopter to open fire on the inmates with live ammunition. Irwin has already planned for this. He calls on the prisoners to help Yates bring the helicopter down by firing a grappling hook into it. Yates manages to climb aboard, kill the sniper responsible for Aguilar's death, and take control of the aircraft. The helicopter crashes soon after, but Yates survives. With every attempt failing, Winter steps onto the field himself. He orders all of his forces to surround the inmates with rifles raised. Under emergency rules, the guards are allowed to use lethal rounds. Winter commands the prisoners to lie down. They refuse. He warns them that snipers are positioned above and will fire if they do not obey. Irwin steps forward and instructs his men to lie down. They follow him instantly, not out of fear, but out of trust. Winter then demands that Irwin return his flag, but Irwin stands firm. Instead, he turns and walks toward the flagpole to raise it. Winter orders his men to shoot, but no one fires. Even Captain Parrots refuses. With his authority collapsing, Winter takes matters into his own hands. He raises his rifle and shoots Irwin in the back, just as the general begins to raise the flag. Even while bleeding and fading fast, Irwin keeps pulling the rope until the flag rises fully into place. Parrot steps in and arrests Winter on the spot. Around them, the inmates rise to their feet and salute the flag now waving above the yard. Winter stares at it in shock. Irwin had raised it correctly, not upside down as Winter feared, which means he shot him for nothing. The film closes with the American flag flying proudly over the prison wall as General Wheeler arrives. Colonel Winter is led away in handcuffs. In the days that follow, the inmates rebuild the wall as a memorial to those who died. Among the names carved into the stone are Aguilar and Irwin, honored side by side. So the moral of the story is sometimes the strongest people break themselves to lift others up. And the saddest part is that real heroes often pay with everything they have, just so the world can finally see the truth.